We start off with the latest from Pakistan, where the country's Information and Broadcasting Minister Fawad Chaudhry has said that extremism in Pakistan was not rooted in the madrasas or the seminaries, but in schools and colleges. Let's take a listen into what he said.
हमारे यहाँ एक्सट्रीमिज्म की बड़ी वजह मदारस हरगिज नहीं, हमारे यहाँ एक्सट्रीमिज्म की सबसे बड़ी वजह हमारे स्कूल हैं और हमारे कॉलेजेस, जहाँ पे एक बाकायदा मंसूबे के तहत 80 की दहाई में और 90 की दहाई में ऐसे उसातिज़ा भर्ती किए गए हैं जो बुनियादी तौर के ऊपर आपको एक्सट्रीमिज्म की तालीम दे रहे हैं। इस वक्त तमाम बड़े जो वाक़यात हुए हमारे यहाँ वो मदारस के स्टूडेंट्स ने नहीं किए, वो ऑर्डिनरी स्कूलों से पढ़े हुए लोगों ने किए, क्योंकि उनके दिमाग ही आपने बंद कर दिए। अगर आप एक इस तरह की सोसाइटी तश्कील देंगे जिसमें दूसरा नुक्ता नज़र जो है वो पहले ही मिनट में कुफर डिक्लेयर हो जाए, दूसरा नुक्ता नज़र जो है उसको फौरी तौर के ऊपर जहन्नुम की बशारत हो जानी है, तो आप दूसरा नुक्ता नज़र कैसे जो है उस सोसाइटी के सामने रख सकते हैं।
Fawad Chaudhry made the comments while addressing a conference on terrorism in the capital, Islamabad. The Pakistan minister also claimed that the country does not face a potential threat from foreign powers like the US and the European Union. But on the religious extremism in the country, he said that until about 300 years ago, there was no religious extremism in modern-day Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, Punjab and other tense regions. It was rather known as the land of Sufis when created. Not just that, during his address, Fawad Chaudhry even highlighted the fact that religious scholars are afraid of speaking up given Pakistan's present domestic situation. He quoted the example of late religious scholar Maulana Hassan Jan, saying he was murdered for a fatwa that declared suicide attacks forbidden in Islam. The Pakistan minister also acknowledged that the state was not doing enough to counter the threat of religious extremism. And in this regard, Fawad Chaudhry spoke about the release of the chief of the terror outfit, Tehreek-e-Labbaik Pakistan, Saad Hussain Rizvi, where he said that everyone saw how the government went on the back foot while dealing with the terrorists.
बहुत सारे लोग ये समझ रहे हैं कि हम इसमें हमारे जो इस वक्त जो रेमेडियल स्टेप्स हैं वो बिल्कुल नाकाफ़ी हैं, और सच्ची बात तो यह है कि ना तो हुकूमत और ना ही रियासत एक्सट्रीमिज्म से लड़ने के लिए उतनी तैयार है जितनी होनी चाहिए। अभी हमने टीएलपी के केस में भी हमने देखा है कि किस तरह से रियासत को पीछे हटना पड़ा, और ये उस बॉम्बशेल की निशानदही करता है जो टिक टिक करके बज रहा है।
Our correspondent Anas Malik earlier sent us this report from Islamabad. Take a look.
On the part of the Pakistani government that these non-state actors or these religious extremists, as they have been pointed out, they are bigger than the state, to the point that the writ of the state is not there and the state had to surrender. He goes on to claim that the Pakistani side in Pakistan, it's not madrasas who are religiously extremizing these individuals, but rather schools are involved. Well, technically he's wrong on that. Schools are involved in that. We've seen some terror-linked elements being graduates of top-notch schools, such as Saad Aziz, the one who was involved in the heinous attack on the Ismaili community, the Safura Goat attack in Karachi. But there are some elements who are graduates of a madrasa as well. In fact, as latest as 2018, we saw bombings that was in revenge of the operation that took place at Lal Masjid in 2007. So Fawad Chaudhry making a contradictory statement there, but the larger message that he says, he talks about the intolerance in the society, which, as I said, it's an admission to guilt on the part of the Pakistani government that it's the curriculum that needs to change to stop the extremism, the radicalization of the Pakistani society by and large. That is something that they need to work on, and on the part of the government, government minister going on record and admitting this, it's certainly quite of a big statement.
And for more perspectives on this, earlier I spoke to Dr. Yaqub Bangash, who is a historian and an academic from Lahore. I began by asking him for his reaction to Fawad Chaudhry's statements, the admission that not enough was being done by the state to counter the threat of religious extremism. This is how he responded.
The state in the last couple of decades hasn't really come up to the challenge, and the state hasn't ensured that the monopoly of violence remains with the state rather than with groups. And I think that's where a lot of work needs to be done. And he's very right with that. But I think one must also understand that what he was talking about was something that has happened over 2 or 3 decades. So you can't really fix it now. You can't fix it tomorrow. It will take a long time to even fix. And especially since, and he made an excellent point when it came to explaining viewpoints. He very rightly said that you can have any viewpoint in a country. It's a democracy. You can have any viewpoint. You can have an extremist viewpoint. That's fine. But when you want to enforce any viewpoint, be it an extremist or even a non-extremist viewpoint using violence, that's where the line should be drawn. And sadly, that line has not been drawn in Pakistan. And governments, successive governments, not just this government, but other governments, have been weak in ensuring that. But the good thing is that now you have a government minister actually saying it. And I think, that will lead to some change, at least in terms of how they intellectually approach the issue, because this is not a very simple issue that, send in the police and send in the army and it will be resolved. It has to be dealt with first at the societal level. It has to be dealt in terms of education. It has to be done in terms of public perception. It has to be done in terms of community development. So there are several levels of it, and only then this monopoly of violence of the state can be maintained, and the thing ensured that no group can actually take violent action.
On the release of the TLP leader Saad Hussain Rizvi, Fawad Chaudhry has admitted that the government went on the back foot. I asked Dr. Yaqub Bangash for his view on the government's handling of the protests by the TLP and the way in which the authorities succumbed to the pressure, to the extent that it has now allowed the leader of the terror outfit, Saad Hussain Rizvi, to walk out of prison.
Fawad Chaudhry himself said that the government went on the back foot. And I think what we discussed earlier gives you the reasons why. Because if you've been fanning a viewpoint for decades, all of a sudden you can't say, well, that's wrong, and let's just roll back the last 30 years. It's not that easy. I would say that, it was not a very good decision of the government to release Saad Rizvi. Whatever cases were against him should have been presented in the court of law, and legal action should have been taken normally. But then again, the government has multiple considerations, and I think, anywhere in the world, the government does make these considerations. Ideally, of course, this should not have been done, and the government should have pushed that legal action be taken, because one of the things which is very clear is when they had their last protest in Lahore, they killed police officers. So it's not the case that they did not indulge in violence. They did indulge in violence. They killed law enforcement officers, and I think that should be prosecuted, because in no place in the world, and Fawad Chaudhry pointed that out also, that the state's monopoly of power should be challenged in this way. But I think it's a path that Pakistan has to tread. They might have released him today, yesterday, but they might have to arrest him again in the very near future, because this is the hard step that Pakistan has to take.
WION now available in your country. Download the app now. Get all the news on the move.